if what I read is true, Trump has brokered a deal with Ukraine to have Ukraine supply the United States with all of the steel, aluminum, and rare earth minerals, pretty much replacing Canada's what used to supply all of those things. Now America's going to the Ukraine, working out a deal with them, and leaving us holding the bag.
Yeah, and I think that is a horrible idea for Ukraine because I don't know why Ukraine. Because I think there's a ton of pushback that people, like a lot of people on the pro-Ukrainian side, do not want Ukraine to sign this because.
That's an interesting thing to say.
Because Donald Trump
sounds like a major economic development for a struggling, rebuilding country. So
I don't like the idea of it because it kind of seems like Donald Trump really, if you want to simplify it in one sentence to how I see it as Donald Trump is saying, okay, why don't you, I'll be Trump, you be Ukraine. So how about you give me all of your minerals, give me all your steel, all of your aluminum, and in return, I'll tell Europe that they have to defend you. They're responsible for you. I'm not responsible for everything, even though you're giving me quite a lot.
Well, there's a few assumptions in there you have to admit. Like, we don't know what the terms of this arrangement are. Like, you're right. Ukraine might be getting ripped off.
I think they're getting shafted.
It may be true, and there's no way for me to know either way. So I have to give you that as an unknown. Ukraine might not be the best negotiator when it comes to setting something up with Trump and steel and aluminum. However, I'm going to try and hopefully think that Ukraine has some advocates on its behalf, whether that be a European nation or just, he must have a short list number who he calls for advice. So I'm hoping that he gets some good advice and makes some good decisions and comes up with a deal. Trump does like to make deals. Now, we don't know if it's a good or bad one for Ukraine, but hopefully Ukraine can strike a deal with the U.S. and make some decent money off of steel, aluminum. Here's what I like about this deal. Steel, aluminum, and rare earth minerals are things that the entire world is in need of. So this positions Ukraine as a world supplier. That makes them a world presence on the big stage, right? So I see this as raising the status, the opinion, the world opinion on the world stage of Ukraine. Now, whether they set up a bad deal or not, that remains to be seen. But I'm going to treat this as a positive for Ukraine because it gives them a realistic way to supply their own needs, i.e. if the United States is buying all of these commodities off of them, there's a regular shipping, there's going to be regular traffic, port calls, there's going to be all of this economic activity that will have spin-off benefits for Ukraine. And so I'm thinking, so far, until somebody tells me that Ukraine is getting ripped off, I'm going to have to lean on the side of this is a definite positive move.
I don't know. When it comes to the whole thing, because sure, you could look at this as money is going to Ukraine to help them rebuild, what have you. But the war is still going on. So
this is a tiny little detail.
So it's a little detail there that kind of throws a wrench into it. How can you rebuild if you are still being shelled on all parts of the country? And
well, don't forget, this agreement may have just been inked. Like, it may just have not be nothing more than a signature for now. They still have to set up all of the equipment. They have to dig the mines. I don't know where they are. Ukraine is in their mining program. This must be part of the deal to set up Ukraine as a supplier of rare earth and steel and aluminum, and who else knows what type of minerals that Ukraine may find when they're making all of these other mines.
Well, interestingly enough, according to UPI, Russia offers own rare minerals deal to U.S., including deposits in occupied Ukrainian territory. How interesting.
Well, Russia does have a lot of rare earths. Well, they have everything. Everything you need, Russia's got it. So it's no surprise that they're trying to sneak in on this deal.
Yeah, sorry. Actually, so it does say, so apparently Ukrainian President Zelensky has indicated a willingness to sign onto the deal, but is holding out for security guarantees from the United States to protect the country from Russia in the future. And that's going to be the giant bugaboo, because I don't think if that's not guaranteed by the States, Ukraine's going to say no. And I think that they should say no, because again, maybe we talked about this in the Russia and Ukraine video. History has shown that you can't trust Russia and rely on their word, and that they need a protection because they're next to such a hostile neighbor that's kind of dragged them through the mud several times in just in the last 100 years.
Yeah, now I you got me thinking. You know, what would, if we take it to the end, what would American what would an American promise of non-aggression look like?
Deploying a bunch of peacekeepers, you know, the whole thing of giving the funding to Ukraine, like giving, because again, like when I think there's that kind of misconception of people saying, well, they're giving lots of money to Ukraine. I believe what's happening is they give the money to Ukraine for Ukraine to then thusly buy munitions and weapons back from the States. So supplying the local American economy and keeping their weapon businesses in business.
Yeah.
So
war is big money.
War is big money.
Money in war.
It pays.
Yeah, pays good.
So I imagine that could be it. Or again, I would hope that really, because I think the best case scenario for Ukraine, even if there's some sort of peace deal where they unfortunately have to give up a lot of their territory that they've lost in the war, I think there could be an acceptance of it by Ukraine and its citizens if they were to be guaranteed ascension into NATO. Because then at that point, Russia can't attack again, or else that Article 5 will mean that they're blown off the map. So,
well, the converse of that is, as soon as you sign the NATO deal, Russia has to attack, as they've promised for generations to do. So you're almost forcing Putin's hand.
But yet all the Baltic states and Finland have joined NATO, and they directly border Russia, and Russia has done nothing.
Right, but there is a certain danger inherent with just one more. What does he do? Okay, he doesn't do anything. All right, just one more. What does he do? Okay, he doesn't do anything. Well, just one more.
But I think that you can show that Putin is just a lying walking farce, because
that isn't up for debate.
He kept threatening. Well, yeah, because he kept threatening nuclear action against the West to try and spook them. Because first it was the F-16s, then it was the Leopard tanks, then it was Finland in NATO, then it was this, and that, and every single time they've done nothing.
Who did nothing? America?
Russia did nothing.
Oh, Russia. Well, they did test their hypersonic ballistic missile.
Again, it's just a spook tactic to get the West to back off.
Well, it worked. Did you see it? It's scary shit. Like, I would not want to be anywhere near that thing. Oh my goodness. It looked like a rain of death, the video that I saw.
I think it's all a scare tactic. I don't think he will, like, Putin will never ever press the nuclear button. He just does that to scare people away. Because the big red button is just very scary.
You're saying that there's no corner that Putin could be backed into where he would say, to heck with it all, press the big button.
Well, it would mean the instant guaranteed destruction of him, his family, and his whole country.
No, exactly. But if that's what I mean.
No, but
is there a corner that Putin could be backed into?
No, because I think his dream is to reclaim the former Soviet Union, and he won't die or he doesn't want to die until that's a reality, and he won't have that reality if he just blasts himself into history, if he wants to start pressing all the red buttons.
Well, once you take away the possibility of that history, and the only other thing left to do is hit the big red button, you know, how do you know what he decides to do? You know, Saddam Hussein, when at the end of the Gulf War, when Saddam Hussein finally realized that his big dream of, you know, owning a port, having access to a port, and take over Qatar or Kuwait, sorry. It wasn't until he was convinced that he had no hope, that he had definitely lost the war, that he lit all those oil wells on fire. And he didn't have a red button, but if he did, I bet you he would have used it, because he lit over 100 wells on fire. It took years to put them all out. And that was his, okay, I'm in a corner. What do I have that I can still have some effect on anything? And they said, well, you can light all the oil rigs on fire and that'll show them. And well, like a moron, that's exactly what he did, because you know it's high school politics again. It's temper. We're full in temper tantrums. We're that's how low we are when we get into wars, right? It's emotional. It's charged.
There are no rules,
and there are no rules, right? Rules of war.
You can try and set up the Geneva Convention.
Yeah.
You can try and set up. There are no rules in war.
As soon as war is declared, all of that gets thrown in the garbage,
and the worst of humanity comes out.
Well, exactly, and that's why we try very hard over thousands of years to rid ourselves of our warlike ways. But, you know, that's not going to happen anytime soon. So we have to deal with it and come up with practical solutions. And, you know, I'm using this steel and aluminum trade. You know, back in the day, monarchies used to trade family members. You know, you marry my cousin, I'll marry your cousin. We'll all get along. This isn't that. But it's something. It is definitely something. And you know, if there's a light at the end of the tunnel, I think that a lot of people will use this as a conduit to go, okay, maybe we can meet on some sort of common ground, come up with a demilitarized zone, come up with a border that makes sense for everybody, come up with a plan of how we're going to get along as two very friendly nations. And I'm still struggling to see what broke them up. Russia and Ukraine have such a long history, and there's conflict, but there's conflict in every country, right? Like you can't give me a country that's been isolated completely from conflict.
Iceland. No, I'm just kidding.
No, Iceland.
Their biggest enemy is the volcanoes.
Yeah, we'll talk about Iceland. That's actually, there's some funny stories about Iceland, especially with Trump. But I still think that this is the first, it's baby steps. It's Bill Murray, baby steps to peace. And I might be completely wrong. What the heck do I know, right? But that's how I'm looking at this news item, is like, oh, right, finally, maybe there's a chink in the armor. We set up some sort of trade agreement with Ukraine. Ukraine feels a little bit stronger, a little bit more independent, a little bit, you know, their world stage, their image is going to go up a little bit. And maybe that will be okay, well, maybe we will sign a deal then and figure this Russia thing out.